Welcome to Access to Perspectives Conversations, the podcast for bridging academic landscapes. At Access to Perspectives, we provide novel insights into the communication and management of research. Our goal is to equip researchers around the world with the skills and enthusiasm they need to pursue a successful career. You will get insights around the topics of scholarly reading, writing and publishing, career development, project management and research integrity, all embedded into open science practices. Learn more about our work at accesstoperspectives.org.
So welcome to another episode of Access to Perspectives Conversations. Today, we are honored to have as our guest Dr. Matthieu Boisgontier, an associate professor at the University of Ottawa in Canada. Warm welcome, Matthieu. It's a great pleasure to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joe.
All right, so we are connected on LinkedIn, and then earlier today, okay, now let's get there when we get there. So, no, you posted something on LinkedIn which triggered me to reach out to you to have this conversation. But before we dig into that, in how you changed your attitude in finding venues and where to publish your research, let's hear from you, like, what kind of research are you doing? We already said it's health sciences, you're a physiotherapist, kinesiologist, but also research, medical researcher. So what got you into the career to start with, and then what are you doing now in that?
So I did my PhD in France, my first postdoc in Belgium at K11, and then I went to Canada at UBC, West Coast, and then I arrived in Ottawa, East Coast. So when I was in PhD, my main research was about aging and neuroscience, postural control, falls in older adults. Then when I went to Belgium, I started to use new techniques like MRI and TMS, so transcranial magnetic stimulation and magnetic resonance imaging, and still in sensory motor control, so understanding how people move and why they move this way from a neuroscience perspective. And then when I went to UBC in Canada, I started to get interested in physical activity and why it's so difficult for some people to be physically active. So I tried to understand it from, again, a neuroscientific perspective. And then I got an assistant professor position at Ottawa. And I kept this line of research about physical activity and neuroscience.
Oh.
So this is the past more than 10 years, I think.
So have you also worked as a practitioner in kinesiology?
So yeah, I was a physiotherapist in France before doing my PhD for 3 years.
And why did you decide, what made you to then also study the science behind what's happening?
So when I was a physiotherapist, I liked it, but after 3 or 4 months, every time I had to change job because I was a bit bored. So I needed to find something more exciting to me and more cognitively stimulating, I think. And my former master's degree supervisor came to me and told me, hey, I have some money to do a PhD. And I was not interested at all in the beginning, but it kept coming. And then at one point I told him, hey, if I can do part-time the PhD and part-time physiotherapist, I'm okay to do it. He said, okay. And then at one point, I started to get really exciting about my research. So I stopped physiotherapy and I did my PhD full time. And then I got cooked. And then it was all research and then teaching. So in the beginning, I didn't understand people who were doing research. I didn't see the point. It was so specific, so niche. So when I saw these people, I was like, I will never do that. And in the end, I'm one of these people now. So
now you're one of us. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
It's not so bad on the other side, is it?
Sorry again?
It's not too bad on the other side. C'est pas trop
No,
mal.
finally, it's really I really like it. I mean, that's my passion now, so I'm happy I found it.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so now you posted that you just recently published your 100th paper. Congratulations. Or should I
Yeah.
say not, because you're also questioning if that's even an accomplishment. But wow, what an effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, this post on LinkedIn, I think it was the opportunity to mention that I don't think it's important, the number of articles. I don't think it's important. I don't think it means anything anymore, since it's now that I think maybe 20 years ago it was important because it was so difficult to publish an article. I don't think it's the case anymore, because if you have money, you will always find a journal where you can publish your work, even if it's bad, because we have so many journals now that don't really do the peer review, even if they pretend they do it. So you just have to give them $2,000-3,000 and they will publish your paper in 20 days. So I think now the number doesn't mean so much. And this is why I wanted to highlight that in my LinkedIn post. So this is why what I mentioned in my post. I say I'm not sure it's such a good thing to have so many papers. I mean, some people have so much more article. For me, it's only 100. But when I see some people, some scientists who publish one article each week, I'm really not sure when we should focus on the numbers. But what I say in my post is that I'm not certain it's a good thing, but what I know is that in each of these 100 papers, I put a lot of heart, sweat, joy, neurons, and above all, many hours of work during days, evenings, weekends. And that's some hours that I could have spent with my family and my friends. So each of these articles is a small part of myself. This is what I realized. And I also realized that these small parts of myself, I used to give it to industries, publishers that don't really care about science. And I did it for so many years that I'm a bit sad about that. And I'm happy that along the way, during the past, I don't know, 70 years, 17, not 70, I realized that, yeah, I realized it was more important to publish these papers in some places that support good, healthy science.
And you mentioned also Diamond Open Access journals as amongst those.
Yeah.
I just came back from last week's second global summit on Diamond Open Access, where we discussed a lot the non-commercial approach to scholarly publishing, which is also not new. It used to be a status quo at some point in time. But now, okay, so what's better with Diamond Open Access journals where you now tend to publish in?
What's better is that it's cheaper and that we don't spend thousands of dollars for one article that we give to industries that won't reinvest it in academia or science. It will just make money and profits for people who don't care about what we do. And this is the main thing, because gold open access, it's not really open access. We have to pay so much money for that. And we don't give it to the academic system. We give it to for-profit industries that will just give it back to people who are not in academia. So this is why I think it's important to try to choose either Diamond Open Access Journal, meaning readers and authors don't pay anything, or because if we want more famous journals, which is often not Diamond Open Access, at least we should go to university press journals, in my opinion, because most of the money will at least stay in the system, in the academic system.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I want to strike a chord, or no, that's not wrong expression. English is also not my first language. But I know a lot of editors who work really hard also on commercial journals, but then what we're referring to is the profit margins that the publishing houses have. And you sometimes wonder if, based on what you find in the news also, if they treat and pay their staff fairly and also have the best interest of their clients in mind, which is the scholarly community, like you said. And that's obviously questionable by what we see is happening as a practice.
Yeah, but I'm also a reviewer, and I was also an editor for these journals, and I realized I gave them too much compared that where what they give back to the system.
Okay.
And this is the main problem, because I think they do about 30 to 40, so 30 or 40 percentage profit on what they do. So it means it's more profit than any other industries.
Yeah.
So it means to me that it's obvious they make too much money, and it means we pay too much for what we have in the end.
Yeah. And it's
because we do all the work mostly for free, and then they ask us to pay for this work we did for thousands of dollars. So this is the main problem to me. Either they pay us more, or they reduce the APCs to less than 1,000 per article, because right now multiple thousand is too much for one article. This is my point. At least if it was $200, $300, $400 for one article, I will understand they provide some improvement to the paper, but for now we pay too much for the improvements.
Yeah. So one reason why the system is not shifting at scale is often referred to the incentive system within the academic institutions. Do you find that in France, where you're from originally, or in Canada, what you're seeing, the incentives are also changing to make it easier for researchers like yourself to change publishing habits?
So I think Europe is much more advanced than US or Canada on this topic. I think Europe is leading the way, and we try to follow in Canada and the US. And it's much more difficult here because the incentives are much weaker than in Europe, in my opinion, at least in the past 5-10 years. This is my feeling. And I wish we were faster in Canada, but every time I'm pushing for a new initiative related to open science, it's so hard, and I have so few support. And when I need help, most of the time I have to ask some people in France or Europe.
Okay, but bottom line is things are moving slowly, but moving, and maybe we can.
It's moving in the right direction, but it's moving slowly, and it's even slower in North America.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This is my perception, at least.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. Okay, so one last question.
Yeah.
I'd like to end the podcast on a positive sentiment, and like the story that you share is very much also a call to action. Or maybe let's end with that. So how would you recommend a colleague in either Ottawa University or Paris or else in the world? What would you say is one thing they can easily consider in taking a step towards?
Oh, they can do many things, and the most important message I want to tell them is that you don't have to be fully open access. We don't want to put all your paper in Diamond Open Access journals, because even myself, I'm not able to do that, because otherwise I'm not part of the game anymore, and people will discard my work. So they can just preprint one paper, that can just put some of their data or their script on open access on open repositories, or they can publish one of their paper in a Diamond Open Access journal, or they can contribute as a reviewer or an editor to this type of journals. There are many ways to contribute. You just have to pick one, once a day, once a time, and that's it. Even if you do one thing, you're still contributing.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. That's a good encouragement. Instead of doing the leap, which might kind of be too scary for most of us, is one little step each of us can take every day, maybe once a month, one more.
Yeah.
And now, because you are professionally at the intersection between like having been a practitioner in physiotherapy and now doing research, do you find, I mean, as a trainer, I often tend to remind and ask people in my courses, why did you start the research in the first place? And now through publishing, why do you think we publish? And then the PhD students often tell me, well, I have to publish to graduate. I have to publish to advance my career. But isn't it that we publish to spread knowledge on the topic? And then to whom? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the recipients? So if we see that as the purpose of publishing, do you find that, or is this an observation you can already see being more efficiently achieved in diamond open access journals because there's no barriers to read, that you also have easier access to actually have a purposeful dissemination of your knowledge instead of just ticking a box, yes, I've published so I can graduate or advance my career?
So I think from the researcher perspective, the main advantage of diamond open access is that it's more inclusive, because maybe I can pay $2,000-3,000 for a paper, but many people cannot. So it means that the research that will be published will be essentially the research from people who have money, and we don't really want that. We want to be a diverse picture of what everybody can publish. And for now, in some fields like mine, in biology or bioscience or health science, you most of the time, if you want your paper to be published in a journal that is recognized by the community, most of the community, you need to pay. And this is a problem because most countries that or universities that don't have the money won't be able to publish. They will publish in journals that nobody will read because they are not referenced in Google Scholar or anything else. So I think it's important that we, as researchers who have money and can do that, don't do that to encourage a system that is free to be more important and become famous. For now, the journals that are the most famous are the most expensive one. We don't want that. We want the journals that are famous to be the ones that are promoting good research practice, that are promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is the journals that we want to be famous. And for now, it's not the case at all. And if we want these journals to become the best one, we need to publish, submit our work, and review for these journals.
Yeah. And the good news is that now in the digital era and with persistent identifiers like DOIs, ORCID IDs for researchers, and also the ROR, like the registry or research organizations, makes it possible that no matter which, if you choose to publish in a gold or diamond open access journal, most of the diamond open access, or many thereof, can also assign persistent identifiers and therefore be indexed in the scholarly databases. I don't want to mention the two most used ones because they're also proprietary, but then Google Scholar, Lens.org, and institutional repositories and discovery services. So, and in doing so, we have access to like multilingual, but also widest possible body of literature.
Yeah, I think it's the right moment to push for diamond open access and preprints and things like that.
Yeah, the technology is mature now for.
Yeah, it's ready.
And it's like
now we need the people to push for it.
We're doing it. We're doing it now. as
Yeah,
we speak,
exactly.
literally. Just one last question, because you mentioned multilingualism, and both of us are not native English speakers. Do you sometimes publish in French or give interviews in French also on your topic, on your research?
So interviews in French, yeah, presentation in French, yeah, because it's much more enjoyable for me. So anytime they ask me to do something in French, I'm happy to do it. And for papers, most of the time it's in English, and I don't have any problem with writing in English. In speaking, it's more difficult because it's more cognitively demanding, and I have a strong French accent and everything. But for writing, I don't have any problem. So when I do it in French, it's because I think I want to um, enable people who don't really speak English, or it's difficult for them to read English. I try to do some outputs in French. But since it's not, there is really no incentive in my field for anything that is not English. It's really on my free time that I do that. And it's really, again, for the community, like when I promote open science. So it's kind of the same when I do research or publish in French. It's just because I want to contribute, because I think it's important to have multilingual research, always for the same reasons, EDI, so equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Yeah. And I also push for multilingualism in my trainings, and I want to create or foster a culture where it's also enjoyable to communicate research in your native tongue, and also to the linguistic community, because they will also benefit from the knowledge.
Yeah.
And then it's like an enjoyable exercise we do naturally, embracing our knowledge skills and thereby being more inclusive. And it's
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
but
totally
I
agree.
understand currently this is not being encouraged much, and there's a lot of pressure on English only in most research topics, but
Yeah,
we're
but
widening the network. So
I think it may change because, for instance, on LinkedIn, all my posts are in French, but I know you can click and then you have this automatic translation. So maybe it will come for journals to be the same. So I think in the future, we might be able to write any article in our own language, and then they will be able to translate it automatically. And
yeah.
this is what we do. You know, we have a I don't know if you know this journal. So it's Peer Community Journal. It's a journal based on the peer review of preprints. And this is what we have on the website. You can click on different language and it will give you the automatic translation of the paper. And I hope in the future it will be this way. And then I will be able to write anything in French, and I won't have to be disadvantaged because English is not my native language.
Yeah, no, I think we will see this very soon, maybe already next year, which is in literally a week from now, or almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bon,
So,
pour le fin, okay, my
yeah.
French is a bit
Perfect.
but maybe feel free to say a few words also en français, parce
Yeah.
que quelqu'un les spectateurs, the listeners,
Ouais, les auditeurs.
auditeurs,
Yeah.
they might also be knowledgeable in French and appreciate you saying something. Maybe.
Euh, pour tous ceux qui ont écouté ce petit podcast et qui veulent aller voir le post sur LinkedIn, et s'ils ont des questions, qu'ils n'hésitent pas à les poser. Il n'y a jamais de questions bêtes. On sera toujours ravis de leur répondre parce que c'est notre passion, tout ce qui est la science ouverte. Et s'ils veulent contribuer, il y aura toujours un moyen de contribuer. Venez nous demander, on vous trouvera comment contribuer. Voilà.
Well, merci. Okay, just quick translation. So whoever has any comment, just correct me if I'm wrong, but feel free to comment and embrace open science practices, and also get in touch, engage, and practice what we discussed in this podcast.
Yeah, and if you have any question or you don't know how to contribute to open science, just let us know. It's our patient will be happy to answer any question
Exactly.
anytime.
And your post will be linked, so people can also click on it, find you on LinkedIn, and then reach out. And of course, you can also find us at Access to Perspectives. We'll be here for you, and more to come. And thanks you, merci beaucoup.
Merci à toi, thank you.
Et bon.
Bonne fête. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I try to avoid the Christmas part because
Exactly.
in respect of
C'est
other.
bonne fête en français, mais en anglais, je sais pas comment on fait. I don't know how we do in English to
I just
avoid.
say happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Festive season, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you
À
so
la
much.
prochaine. Merci beaucoup.
Bye bye. Thank you. À la prochaine.
Thanks for joining us to listen to this episode. Do let us know what you think. You can email us or connect with us on our social media channels, which you can find on our website at accesstoperspectives.org. Email us at info@accesstoperspectives.org or book a call to explore how we can support you with your research planning, management, and publishing. Welcome you again soon for our next episode. Until then, have a great time.